Isolation. It's something we innately despise. No one likes to be alone, whether it be regarding a relationship or work or just your current living situation. Isolation can be both ubiquitous and mentally harmful simultaneously. With the UK in its second lockdown of the year, I fear that these thoughts of being alone and sequestered in my house will turn dark, something that I'm sure has affected numerous others. Having lived through one lockdown already this year, I figured I could last at least another month of self-isolation and trivial indoor activities. Now, however, nearly halfway in, it seems I have embraced this societal detachment. I find more solace walking alone in the outside world, the autumn wind holding a satisfying natural chill. Everything feels different, but visually, from what I can tell, it seems almost untouched. People roam the pathways and cars parade through the streets like nothing has changed, yet internally, everyone knows the world isn't the same. We don't know how long this will last. No one can state for sure that this virus, and in effect this way of life, will ever really dissipate. Which is why I find embracing the frankly dystopian situation to be exactly what I needed. With isolation comes spare time, and with spare time comes games, at least when I'm not walking. In my lower moments in this lockdown, I turned to indie treasures, and one very specific game that completely passed me by at first. I didn't expect anything special from Hollow Knight, just a classic and enjoyable 2D Metroidvania platformer, and while yes, that is exactly what I got, there is so much more to this game than what lies on the surface. Hollow Knight is a beautifully crafted tale about acceptance. Whether it be regarding the world around us and the way we perceive it, or even our own emotions and how we should react to them, Hollow Knight maturely comments on the impact of all these very heavy notions. The world is inherently spontaneous, our minds even work the same way, we only have so much control within this ever-changing world, and Hollow Knight teaches this very idea as you go along. But the reason I find this game so captivating now is because of our current predicament. COVID-19 and these lockdowns have become a staple of 2020 and will, unfortunately, carry on into the future. While there have been updates and news on vaccines and other breakthroughs, the damage has already been done. We've seen the true colours of people already, even way back when this first began. What Hollow Knight managed to do over 3 years ago was accurately present our world now, outlining everything that occurs when a world is struck with a disease such as this. It managed to capture the world of our pandemic without even realising that it was on the horizon, and depict that world within Hollow Nest, a microcosm of the pandemic's effects. Within all this is you, the protagonist in your own life, one who learns over time that in order to survive in this world of isolation and disease, you must first learn to accept it. Hollow Knight's lore and background is deep and exceptionally detailed, and something that I would not be able to do justice in a video like this, let alone explain. Maybe one day I'll make an entire video on a game's lore, but for now I want to focus on the world of Hollow Nest and the characters that inhabit it. Cherry pick Team Cherry, as it were. So before I begin, I highly recommend playing Hollow Knight. It's free on PS Plus this month, and it is well worth experiencing for yourself before I go and spoil elements of it, but it is well worth your time. Hollow Knight tells the story of the Knight, a nameless adventurer who arrives at the entrance to Hollow Nest in search of answers. The Knight makes camp in the surface town of Dirtmouth and begins his journey from there, unaware of what awaits within this urban ruin. As the Knight and you, the player, venture further and further into the ruins of Hollow Nest, it becomes more and more apparent that it was once a flourishing and affluent kingdom, one that deteriorated rapidly upon the spread of the infection, the main antagonistic force of the game. This infection, also known as the Ancient Sickness, the Bright Light, or just the Plague, drove the denizens of Hollow Nest to madness and eventually led to the deaths of thousands of bugs and ultimately the downfall of the kingdom. The belief is that sometime after the arrival of the Pale King, the previous leader of Hollow Nest, and the passing of the Radiants, a benevolent higher being, the infection was released and spread through the minds and souls of the bug populace. Whether it was an intentional act of release or just a mere accident, we cannot tell, but several ideas point to the Radiants at least being somewhat responsible for the infection's spread at the beginning. The Pale King sacrifices one of his sons with the White Lady to the infection and seals them away, with the assumption that this would prevent any further spreading of the plague. Now, even from the introduction of this viral force, the similarities between the infection and our own pandemic are almost uncanny. At the start, the true origins are uncertain, but several theories as to its appearance scattered the world. As stated, the Radiance is considered responsible for the release, spreading it between bugs and driving them to madness. However, the Radiance states otherwise. The plague, the infection, the madness that haunts the corpses of Hollow Nest, the light that screams out from the eyes of this dead kingdom. What is the source? I suppose mere mortals like myself will never understand. There is no set answer to the origins of this disease, and even the one who is suspected denies any knowledge. Our own thoughts of the coronavirus run parallel to the beliefs of the infection. Determining the source becomes a challenge when so many hypothetical stories are passed round of its origin. We've seen the thoughts on it as a bioweapon, it being emitted from 5G towers, and even now, with the knowledge of a potential vaccine in the works, it seems our society can't see the optimism within the news. Something is always against us. Moreover, a blame game emerges from the origins, something many individuals take too far. The hatred turns to the beings that inhabit the origins. The Radiance may be the culprit, but it is the bugs that she infected that become scapegoated and affected by the affliction. While the actual effects of the infection differ from the way the coronavirus affects our bodies, the world it has ravaged is what I find eerily familiar. While many were physically affected by the disease, others went mad on their own accord to prevent it, taking any methods necessary to keep themselves alive and unharmed. Many others turned to their pale king for answers, who was already occupied with his own methods of trying to stop the infection. At the beginning of all this, we saw the ludicrous notions going around the world, more specifically in areas like the US and Europe. Certain leaders would encourage the incorrect methods, and due to their loyalty, their followers took on these methods, thereby harming themselves further. Be it the encouragement of hydroxychloroquine, an untested drug already utilised for arthritis, to stories of people drinking bleach because they're merely told that it will save you. People blindly following their leaders hasn't and didn't help anyone. While many leaders globally listened to experts and took the path to salvation, it's the mob mentality and unquestioning belief that breaks a society, be it Hallownest or our own. It is here that we turn to the protagonist, the Knight, one in the line of many who have been purposely constructed to contain the infection. Since this disease in Hollow Knight holds power over the mind and is able to relinquish the bugs of their own volition and free will, the Knight is designed by the Pale King without any traits, devoid of desire, will, and any form of emotional attachment, thereby making it impossible to be corrupted. We can see our fallen past versions of this experiment within the Abyss, where the failures are doomed to inhabit. And it is this exact being, this exact mindset, that confirms the argument of acceptance. The Knight's inability to be corrupted is as a result of his design. He cannot feel and merely traverses Hallownest in search of answers, a goal with no emotional attachment or motive. This ideology isn't unique to the protagonist though. Other characters you meet throughout the game share similar thoughts, and many other characters challenge these thoughts of mine, with passion and individualism being what defines them. Quirrell, for example, while not explaining his reasons for exploring the ruins of Hallownest, is always optimistic and upbeat, ready for adventure. He goes so far as to state that for so long I felt drawn here. So many tales full of wonders and horrors. No longer could I resist. I just had to see it for myself. I see Quirrell as more of an embodiment of the sense of adventure. We have an innate desire to explore the world, especially when it is noticeably different, and Quirrell acts as a constant reminder of that throughout the game. While he can initially be found at the Temple of the Black Egg, he can be encountered in several locations around Hallownest, passing on his knowledge and advising you, something we all need in a time such as this. His guidance keeps you going, reminding you to look after and maintain your weapons, even encouraging you to take the deceased's equipment, since the dead shouldn't be burdened with such things. Optimism for many is what keeps us going, and Quirrell is a reminder of this belief. However, it is ambivalence that leads you to ending the pandemic of the infection. Several characters, while not born without belief and feeling, unlike yourself, have come to terms with the world and understand it. They have found solace in the unforgiving world around them. The first notable example is Markoth, a warrior dream boss battle within the game. Though there isn't much knowledge about him, his intentions within the infection were clear. Upon defeating him, he states a line that was most curious. Here at the edge of the world, no one could find me, except you. Warriors, knights, kings, even time itself, they have no power over me, only you. It appears from this that Markoth sequestered himself from the world, not wanting to be found. Upon further investigation, it is understood that he went to Kingdom's Edge to seclude himself and meditate, hoping to uncover a truth long forgotten. He eventually died there, having learned and accepted the world for what it is, until you find his corpse. The body of a warrior. Markoth acts as a primary example of acceptance. If the world is already torn apart with no real way to revive it, then answers must be required. Him as a case study is further supported by the text in the Hall of Gods about him, which reads, "Dreamborn god of meditation and isolation." It seems to Markoth, the only option was to escape and meditate. The only way to live through Hallownest's downfall was to accept it on his own. Whether that was the right answer for him, we will never know, but Markoth experienced his own personal lockdown, a self-isolation in search for answers, something not too dissimilar to our own position. Similarly to this is the Dung Defender, one of the major bosses of Hollow Knight, and once the most loyal loyal of the 5 great knights. While his story of the infection is much more upsetting, he still finds comfort in what he believes, and really, what else is there to do but be comfortable with the world? The Dung Defender, also known as Ogrim, survived the infection, but decided to isolate himself in the royal waterways until his time came. There, he became the Dung Defender, passing the time by guarding the pumps to Isma's Grove, challenging passerbys to fights, and rolling dung around into statues. His defense over Isma's Grove comes from his fondness for Isma, another of the 5 great knights. He waits for her to return. However, Ogrim, unlike Markoth, seems unaware of the fate of his king and the other knights, hence why he awaits Isma's return. In his isolation, he deludes himself into thinking they will return and that Hallownest can be reborn. This optimism, while incorrect and harmful, keeps him content with his position. Rather than just waiting for the world to collapse, he believes it can be rebuilt upon the return, a return that will never happen. Upon entering Isma's Grove, she appears to be dead, and the cause of her demise becomes shrouded with questions. Retrieve Isma's tear and return to Ogrim, and he'll state, "Ah, that tear. You've been to her grove. I swore I'd visit, but my duties, my oath, oh, I'm sorry, ignore me, I'm being foolish. If I'm not careful, I'll sink down into old memories and won't ever come back again." Ogrim is, unfortunately, too far gone. While he has found acceptance, his delusion has taken over. He may never see the people he's waiting for so desperately. It is an emotional reality for us, the player, when Isma is located, but for the knight, she is just another casualty within the infection. I think that's something we forget amidst all this. It's not just us. Yes, we are the protagonist in our own story, but everyone around us is experiencing this pandemic at the same time. We're all living in this world together, the same slowly sinking boat. If Quirrell acts as a reminder of our fleeting positivity, Ogrim is our reminder of family, friends, and the people around us. Ogrim's compassion for the passed on Isma tells a single story of loss in a world full of daily updates. We see the numbers so regularly that we've become desensitized to these people, the ones we lose every day. Ogrim's acceptance comes with an innate sense of reluctance. He may have to move on, but that doesn't mean that's what he wishes. None of us want to move on, none of us want to accept this unforgiving world, but what else can we do? We as individuals can only do so much, and if acceptance is the introduction, if acceptance is the answer, then it seems we will have to start somewhere. My final point regards the first ending. This ending depicts the death of the Hollow Knight, the Pale King's trapped, infection-infused entity. But what follows seals this belief. The Knight, Yu, takes the place of the Hollow Knight, absorbs the infection into their own body, and are sealed into the Black Egg in exchange. The becoming of the vessel is this final acceptance, the "if you can't beat him, join him" mindset. The Knight's sacrifice to the infection, the final image of this protagonist, is him undertaking his fate, sealing himself away, isolating himself from the world for good. Though this clearly isn't the answer for our own situation, I think this is more a message to the world. It's an encouragement to stop fighting, observe the world for what it is, and eventually, with time, everything shall pass. Be you one with Ogrim's belief of acceptance through patience, or be one with Quirrell and see the optimism in the world. The answers will come with time. Self-isolation is never desired. No one wants us to sequester ourselves and hide away from the world. But in cases like these, the answers will come to you, not the reverse, even if it is tantalizing. In essence, Hollow Knight is both an excellent indie game experience and a sensational look into a world much like our own. A world crumbling in front of our eyes due to a disease we know little about. We've seen people at their best and at their worst through this global pandemic. We've seen the kindness of neighbours and the destruction of leaders, both of which will leave unfathomable impacts on the world. But in the grand scheme of things, everything will be okay eventually. We don't know when or how, but to accept the world now and just following the rules set out may give you what you're seeking. Sitting around may be an unfortunate element of this lockdown process, but sometimes the answers may be right in front of you, and for once, we don't have to go far to find them this time. Hey guys, thanks for getting to the end of this. I know this is long and different, but I've been wanting to do a proper video essay for ages, and I do really hope that you enjoyed it. If you like these, do be sure to tell me. I love, considering I'm doing English, I kind of need to practice somehow, and if I can write it about stuff I actually enjoy, then it doesn't get much better than that. But the message still stands in this, do stay safe, do be careful, but be patient. Everything happens and everything will end eventually, and, you might learn a thing or two. So I'm going to go and not do that. I don't know what I'm talking about now. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the coming days, hopefully. Stay safe all.